Hello, friend. This is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProphet.com, and today I want to talk to you about what is a false prophet. I was asked this question from one of the disciples of Joshua, the followers of Joshua, which is a gentleman who I've made videos about in the past, including one that went through all his interviews up until that point. That's about 5 hours long of just going through and dissecting all the false prophecies he was giving. And so this is one of his followers who was challenging me, saying that I can't know he's a false prophet. What is even a false prophet? What is a false prophet? Now, this was an act of desperation on their part, of course, because what's confusing about the term false prophet? And see, some of them were lured in to the deception because Joshua went about saying, I'm not a prophet. He thought wrongly that he could just say, well, I'm not a prophet. So all these prophecies I'm giving, they're not really prophecies where you can judge my words and say that they're untrue or I'm a false prophet because I said I'm not a prophet. So that magically absolves me of all the charges of false prophecy that are obvious because my prophecies failed. And I gave this person this passage of scripture from Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 20 through 22. And it says this: But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord hath not spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken. But the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. And so I gave this individual that passage of scripture, and then they retorted with a childish insult, or attempt at an insult, saying, well, that last part, thou shalt not be afraid of him. What are you afraid of, Joshua? Completely obviously missing the whole entire point. And that little part about thou shalt not be afraid of him, because these prophets often came, these false prophets, giving words of judgment or bad things are about to happen. And it would get people in a panic. Joshua was not coming bringing a bad message, although I guess he did technically, because he was talking about all this doom and gloom that was going to happen after his failed rapture occurred, which of course it didn't. So much so that he said the Lord told him. This is not him just guessing or doing some calculations. He said the Lord himself told him this useless thing of there will be no World Cup in 2026. Well, that buys him a little bit of time, but the fact is there will be a World Cup in 2026 because nothing Joshua has said has come to pass. Everything's a lie. Everything's false. Everything was given by either completely lies from himself, I don't know, or he's listening to seducing spirits. He's literally having Satan appearing to him as an angel of light and giving him these false revelations because nothing he's said is true. Nothing he's said has come to pass, even though he claimed to be speaking by the very mouth of God. If we love God and we are Christian people, truth is one of the fundamental parts of our belief. We don't follow lies. We don't follow liars. We don't follow people who tell things that don't happen. And when somebody claims to speak in the name of the Lord and it does not happen, they are a false prophet. I don't care if they try to say, well, I'm not a prophet. They're a false prophet. They prophesied falsely in the name of the Lord. They claimed a word from God that was untrue. They are a false prophet. And there are plenty of false prophets today. But I want to pivot a little bit from that issue of these false prophets running around. They're so obvious. And I think really the sad reality is that a lot of these people, especially like the cult of Joshua, these people just desperately want to belong to something. They desperately want to have some purpose. And since everybody else is shunning Joshua, they did from the very beginning because he was obviously false from the very beginning. But these people feel like they found something. They found a community. They found something to gather around and rally around. And they go defending Joshua everywhere they can because he's their God, basically. They are waiting for him to give them a word from God because they don't hear from God themselves. And so it's tragic. And he just leads them astray with every word. It's another false revelation, false vision, false dream, false quote-unquote visitation. It's all false. But I want to pivot to something else about your own life. because maybe you're not going to be foolish enough to follow a false prophet. Most people wouldn't. But what about you prophesying falsely in your own life? How many people talk negativity over their own lives? How many people prophesy falsely over their own lives? Well, things never work out for me. Well, it's always so hard. They just keep prophesying falsely over their own lives. And they start to believe it, and then they start to manifest it and live that kind of life. It's one thing for a man to go around giving false prophecies that the vast majority of people are going to ignore and rightly mark and avoid that man. But what about when you give false prophecies over your own life? What if you are your own false prophet? What if you're the one that is constantly decreeing and speaking forth words of death, words of cursing, words of failure, words of mediocrity, words of misery even? We have a choice each day. We can choose life and blessing, or we can choose death and cursing. And many people prophesy falsely over their own lives, death and cursing. The blessing of the Lord is ready and right there for them to receive, and they turn away from it to go and prophesy more doom and gloom over their own lives. And they do it over other people's lives. And they do it over their own children's lives. I've seen people do that where she always gets sick, so she'll be sick this time of year. The flu's going around. Talking about their child. But people do that about themselves. They do it about other people. And they're the worst false prophet they could ever run into in their own lives. If you're going to speak words at all, speak words of life. Speak words of blessing over yourself and other people. Don't go around cursing other people. Don't be like the people who James talked about, who out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. Now listen, there is a time for rebuke, especially when people are in leadership in the church. You have to rebuke them if they've sinned. The scripture says very plainly, them that sin rebuke before all. Those leaders are held to a higher standard. We don't just sweep stuff under the rug. We call it out if there is a false prophecy given, if there is a liar in the pulpit, or somebody claiming to speak for God. You have to call those things out. But you can do it in grace, you can do it in love, you can do it with compassion, because while those false prophets are lost, we still want them to come to true faith in Jesus. Not this magical, made-up Jesus that's really Satan in disguise, but the true, living King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But even in your daily life, speak life, speak blessing over yourself and other people. Don't be that person who's going around cursing others, telling them how bad things are going to go for them, telling them, it's so hard, and this bad thing, I know you'll probably get sick too, and that bad thing will happen. No. Speak life. Speak blessing. Be a true prophet, a prophet who speaks words of life and blessing over yourself and those around you, by the grace of God, because it's all by God's grace. We don't live this life in our own being. It's in Him we live and move and have our being. It's from His grace, it's from His compassion and love for us that we are alive and thriving and excelling and living the abundant life that Jesus came to give us. And we need to make sure each and every day that we speak forth that truth of God's goodness and His grace and the blessed life that we live and experience each and every day. Even if your life is not the greatest right now, continue to speak life and blessing. Continue to expect more, to expect the best, and watch as your life becomes even greater and more abundant. I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.